The Story of Madame Violette and the Edinburgh Vampire Hive by Ronald MacLennan. The Shadow of Edinburgh. Edinburgh has always been a city of contrasts. By day, its spires rise proudly against the Scottish sky, symbols of enlightenment and reason. By night, however, the old town whispers secrets older than reason itself. Beneath its cobbled closes and beneath the wind-battered turrets, there lies something that neither history books nor tourist guides ever dare to mention: the hive. Locals whisper about it in hushed tones, claiming that a secret society of vampires has lived beneath the city for centuries. And at the heart of this tale, more feared than loved, stands a single name: Madame Violette. But who was Madame Violette? A courtesan? A noblewoman fallen into ruin? A witch? Or perhaps something far darker, something that was never human at all? The deeper we descend into her legend, the more we find ourselves face to face with the truth Edinburgh has been hiding for centuries: a pact of blood, a network of tunnels, and the rise of a vampire hive. Madame Violette, the woman behind the veil. Very little is known about the mortal life of Madame Violette. In the few records that remain, she appears as a figure of ambiguity, moving through the city in silks and shadows. Parish registers of the late 17th century list a woman named Violette Ainsworth, born in 1662 to a wealthy merchant family. Her beauty was said to be both intoxicating and intimidating, with violet eyes so deep that men felt themselves drowning in them. But by the time she reached her 30th year, Violette Ainsworth had vanished from polite society. In her place appeared Madame Violette, a woman who moved not in daylight, but in candlelit salons, hidden behind velvet drapes and iron-bolted doors. Rumors claimed she kept company with scholars who dabbled in forbidden arts, Jacobite spies, and foreign occultists who arrived in Leith with crates not meant for sunlight. Unlike other women of her time, she was never persecuted as a witch. Instead, city magistrates avoided her name altogether, as though even writing it might bring ruin. Witnesses described her as impossibly young, even in her 5th decade of life, her skin luminous, her lips redder than any mortal's should be. Some whispered that she had struck a bargain with dark forces beneath the city. Others claimed she was no longer bargaining at all, she was the force itself. The Vampire Hive, beneath the cobbled streets. The Edinburgh Vampire Hive is not merely a tale of one creature, but of a brood. Beneath the Royal Mile lies a warren of vaults and tunnels, remnants of the medieval city buried during later construction. Most visitors know them today as part of ghost tours, but the true history runs far darker. Legends claim Madame Violette discovered the vaults in the 160s-90s, when she began purchasing abandoned cellars beneath Southbridge. With her wealth, she expanded them, connecting chambers into a subterranean network so vast that even the city's masons whispered uneasily about her patronage. It is said that the hive was born there, a gathering of those she turned. Unlike the solitary vampire of Eastern European folklore, the hive was structured, organized, and disciplined. By the early 18th century, it was said that at least 30 of Edinburgh's elite had pledged themselves to Violette in exchange for eternal youth. Unlike the scattered revenants of rural superstition, this was something more sinister: a colony, a systematic society of vampires. They drank in ritual, fed in order, and enforced silence through terror. Any servant, beggar, or prostitute who stumbled too close to the truth simply vanished into the wines, never to be seen again. One chilling diary entry from 1712, attributed to Reverend Andrew Bell of St. Giles, describes it thus:
Beneath the city they gather, not as beasts but as soldiers of the night. Their mistress, adorned in violet silk, sits upon a chair of bone. Their mouths are wet with blood, not of the swine nor the sheep, but of the parish itself. God preserve us, for the earth drinks what the church cannot consecrate.
The hive's hierarchy and blood rituals. Unlike solitary predators, the hive operated under a rigid hierarchy. Madame Violette was the matron of blood, an absolute ruler who demanded fealty from all who drank her crimson chalice. Beneath her were the progenitors, 6 vampires who acted as lieutenants, each responsible for a district of the old town. Each progenitor maintained their own circle of thralls, half-turned servants bound by addiction to Violette's blood. These thralls aged slowly, obeyed blindly, and enforced the hive's will among the living people. Feeding with fire was not chaotic, but it was humbled by small pleasures, with fear. Instead, the hive held what was known as the Crimson Hour, when chosen mortals were brought into the vaults, drugged with wine and laudanum, and fed upon by order. Some were returned to their homes dazed and sickly, their pallor mistaken for common consumption. Others were never seen again, claimed by the hive for permanent silence. The hive's most terrifying custom was the Vigil of the Vein. Each year during the longest night of winter, Madame Violette demanded a sacrifice. A human victim was bound in silk cords, their veins opened with a silver knife, and their blood collected in chalices. The progenitors would each drink, after which Violette herself would rise, untouched by age, to proclaim dominion over Edinburgh for another year. Such rituals were whispered about, even in polite society. Several noble families were accused of winter disappearances, their children taken as offerings. Yet no trial was ever held, for none dared accuse Madame Violette publicly. Those who tried often found their tongues swollen, their bodies drained of blood by dawn. Encounters and eyewitness accounts. The hive was not invisible. Too many stories survive to dismiss as mere invention. One of the most famous comes from William McHardy, a night watchman in 1743. His surviving testimony, discovered in city archives, reads,
I was patrolling near Cowgate when I heard singing beneath the ground, like a choir, but sweeter and more dreadful. Following the sound, I found a grate where the earth breathed with warmth. And I looked within and saw them, white as candle wax, their mouths wet and red. At their center sat a woman, beautiful and terrible, who raised her hand toward me. I fled. Days later, I found a mark upon my neck, though I swear none touched me. I begged the kirk to bless me, but I am certain I shall not see another winter.
Others tell of carriages seen rolling through the grass market at impossible hours, with velvet curtains drawn and not a horse hoof heard. Some tell of Madame Violette herself appearing in brothels and salons, selecting a victim with no resistance, as though her gaze alone compelled obedience. Perhaps most chilling are the tales of children vanishing from the winds. Record shows spikes of disappearances in 1708, 1721, and 1756, years aligned with Violette's rumoured rituals. Mothers prayed not only to God but also whispered bargains to Violette herself, leaving offerings of milk and wine in alleyways, in hopes she would spare their young. The Velvet Salon, Madame Violette's secret court. If the hive's vaults were its body, the Velvet Salon was its heart. Hidden deep beneath the South Bridge, this chamber was no mere cellar, but an underground court designed for decadence and dominion. Descriptions of the Velvet Salon survive only in fragments, from whispered testimonies of escapees, the journals of occult hunters, and the scandalous gossip of Ember's high society. What emerges is a portrait of a room so extravagant and terrible that it rivaled the palaces of kings. The walls were said to be lined with violet drapes heavy as funeral shrouds. Candles of black wax burned in sconces of human bone. At the chamber's centre stood a dais upon which Madame Violette reclined in a high-backed chair known as the throne of silk and ash. At her feet lay rugs woven not of wool but of human hair, trophies of the hive's victims. The salon was not merely a place of feasting but of governance. Here Violette ruled her court like a monarch, passing judgment on thralls who disobeyed, choosing which mortals would be spared and which would be sacrificed. Aristocrats and scholars alike were brought here in secrecy, not always as victims, but sometimes as petitioners. For it was whispered that Violette possessed knowledge beyond mortal ken, cures for ailments, insights into alchemy, and prophecies written in blood. Some came willingly, seduced by the promise of immortality. Others came in terror, dragged into the chamber by thralls. Once inside, none left unchanged. You either bent a knee to Violette, or you never walked out again. It was in this velvet-draped hell that the hive's influence expanded. Business contracts were sealed in blood. Political loyalties shifted under her hypnotic gaze. In time, the hive was not only a supernatural terror, but also a political force, shadowing the Enlightenment with a darkness too deep for reason to dispel. The battle for Edinburgh's soul. For decades, the hive thrived in silence, unchallenged beneath the city. But in the mid-19th century, resistance began to stir. The Society of the White Thistle, a clandestine brotherhood of clergymen, scholars, and disillusioned nobles, swore to end Madame Violette's dominion. Armed with silver blades, crucifixes, and texts on demonology smuggled from the continent, they planned an assault on the hive. On the winter solstice of 1752, the vigil of the Vane was interrupted. Records describe an underground battle that shook the vaults themselves. The Thistle Society stormed the Velvet Salon, breaking through with fire and consecrated steel. Eyewitness fragments claim the salon became a battlefield of screams and crimson mist. Thralls fought like rabid beasts, their veins glowing faintly from Violette's blood. Progenitors fell one by one, their bodies dissolving to ash under silver blades. Yet Madame Violette herself remained untouchable. One account, written in the trembling hand of Father Malcolm Ray, describes her in that moment.
She rose from her throne, untouched by blade or bullet. Her eyes blazed like violet flames, and with but a gesture she turned our strongest men to shadows. The air itself obeyed her. Yet we pressed on, for the Lord gave us courage where reason faltered.
The battle ended not with Violette's death, but with her disappearance. As flames consumed the salon, she is said to have walked into the fire unburned, vanishing into the tunnels. The hive collapsed in chaos. Survivors among the vampires fled into the labyrinth, scattering like rats into the night. The White Thistle proclaimed victory, claiming the hive was destroyed, but in whispers, Edinburgh's citizens doubted. Too many disappearances continued. Too many shadows lingered, and the name of Madame Violette still carried terror, not as a relic of the past, but as a promise of return. Modern investigations and paranormal research. The 19th century brought industrial progress, but it also brought renewed fascination with the city's underworld. When the South Bridge vaults were rediscovered in the 1980s, urban explorers reported strange phenomena, sudden chills, echoing footsteps, and whispers in the dark. Paranormal investigators flocked to the site, armed with cameras and EMF meters, yet many emerged shaken. Several modern reports stand out. 1992, a group of tourists reported seeing a woman in violet silk glide burst, the face pale and luminous. She vanished when a torch was raised, leaving behind only the scent of roses and iron. 2001, a paranormal team recorded unexplained audio of chanting voices. When played backward, researchers claimed to hear the words, "Violet reigns." 2014, a construction worker clearing debris near Calgate claimed to find a bone chair fused into the wall, its surface polished as though long used. The artifact was quickly removed, and no official record remains. Skeptics dismiss these as hysteria or tourist exaggerations, yet the pattern of disappearances in Edinburgh has never entirely ceased. Police archives show unexplained spikes of missing persons in 1978, 1954, and 1998, all years aligning with the winter solstice. In 2021, a group of occult researchers known as the Order of the Second Dawn published a controversial paper arguing that Madame Violette never died. Instead, they claimed she exists in a state of suspended dormancy, waiting for the hive to be rebuilt. Their evidence included infrared scans of certain vault chambers that showed inexplicable heat signatures, as though something pulsed beneath the stone. Whether truth or fiction, the myth persists. Edinburgh's tours now market the vaults' haunted attractions, weaving Violette into ghost stories for tourists. Yet among locals, the fear remains quiet but enduring. No one dares to speak her name near the vaults after midnight. Legacy of fear, what remains today? What makes the legend of Madame Violette so enduring? Perhaps it is because it blends too seamlessly with Edinburgh's landscape. The city is already a labyrinth of closes, winds, and hidden rooms. Its history is one of plague pits, executions, and buried streets. The idea of a hive beneath its cobblestones does not feel like fantasy, but inevitability. Even skeptics admit that Violette represents something powerful, the dark twin of Edinburgh's Enlightenment glory. Where philosophers sought reason and light, she ruled in blood and shadow. Her hive was not only a vampire colony, but also a metaphor, a warning that beneath progress always lurks hunger, secrecy, and corruption. Today, graffiti in the old town sometimes bears a single violet flower painted in dripping crimson. Internet forums speak of urban explorers who vanish in the vaults. Musicians in the city's underground scene claim inspiration from whispered encounters with the hive. And every winter solstice, when the longest night falls, candles still appear outside South Bridge, offerings of milk, wine, and blood-red roses. Is Madame Violette gone, or does she linger still, her hive rebuilding in silence? The answer depends on whom you ask. But one truth remains: Edinburgh is never alone in the dark. A city that never sleeps alone. The story of Madame Violette and the Edinburgh Vampire Hive is not merely a folktale. It is a lens through which the city's shadows reveal themselves. Whether one believes in her literal existence or not, her legend has shaped Edinburgh's cultural identity. Madame Violette is at once courtesan, queen, and curse. A woman who stepped beyond mortality and brought a city with her. Her hive remains the most chilling secret of the old town, a society of blood beneath a society of reason. And as long as the vaults remain, as long as the solstice returns, so too will her story. When you walk the cobbled streets of Edinburgh at night, pause at the sound of footsteps that do not match your own. Look carefully at the windows of the old town, where violet curtains may flutter without wind. And if you ever hear singing from beneath the ground, sweet and dreadful, do not follow it, for you may not find your way back.